episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined along my co-host London Beth, and today we are hitting on the first week updates from OTAs for the Chicago Bears. But before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Higher Level Camps.
27 years and counting, Nick. HLC has been the longest-running boys and girls AAU program in the state of Wisconsin. HLC was established in 1995 by their founder and retired WNBA player Cheryl Moore. HLC has now grown as of a couple of years back to include 3 locations in the greater Fond du Lac, Milwaukee, and Eau Claire areas. For more information, of course, visit higherlevelcamps.com and tell them Just Another Year Chicago sent you.
We love Cheryl, though she is a Packers fan. And yes, the notebook is out. London is pumped about it. We scripted the whole thing. We promise. London has repeated it so many times. He's not going to need it soon. But quick shout out to DHgate for the awesome $3 Bears 1946 flag. I am telling you guys, DHgate steals, not deals. Head over there. It's trustworthy. It takes a month to get here, but it's $3 flippin' dollars. So with that, and this is our new background moving forward for now for Bears podcast. But with that, OTAs, baby, they look good. The Bears are looking fire. Let's start off with the big one. Justin Fields, obviously, that's what everyone wants to know about. But man, does he look strong. He's got swagger out there. He's getting along with teammates. He's getting along with coaches. London, I know that you are pumped about this guy. I'm pumped about this guy. I'm even pumped about Andy Dalton, but we'll get into that in a second. But Justin Fields, I mean, he's what we've been missing for a very long time.
Yeah, just the way he carries himself on the field, Nick, is just, it's, what's the best word for it? It's just something that like Bears Twitter and Bears fans are just so eager to consume. And it's something I think we've been just missing, is that like that born leader. And I know David Montgomery came out and talked about just that he carries himself not like a rookie. I think Montgomery said, like, when I was a rookie, I was really tentative and I was like nervous and like going into OTAs and then into training camp, I was kind of, deer in headlights. And he goes, Justin Fields carries himself in just a whole nother level. That is exactly what you want out of your quarterback. I was really excited to see him throw. We'll get into a little more details of just breaking down kind of what I saw on Twitter. If you haven't seen the 1920 Football Doctor on the Chicago Bears YouTube page, go watch it. I know I had Nick go watch it. I know Tony probably wouldn't watch it. I know half of Bears Twitter went and watched it. Go watch it. It's phenomenal. We finally get to have a sneak peek behind the curtains of an organization that really doesn't usually do that. And I was really excited about it. And it showed a lot of great clips, like Justin Fields already saying that he hates the Packers because his center in college, Josh Meyer, got drafted to them. So excitement, absolute excitement.
Apparently he hasn't even talked to Meyer either. Like they understand that they went from buddies to, rivals in, the snap of a weekend. So, I mean, I got to agree with you. I mean, just Fields has, I kind of said it before, like, it's just this swagger out there. Like, when he throws the ball, he looks strong. It's off the hand fast and it's accurate. Sure. Like any quarterback in the league, there is going to be an overthrow or two. And he overthrew onto Anthony Miller. That was posted on Anthony Miller's IG story. I don't believe it's there anymore. But if you were able to see it, Miller jumped like 8 inches off the ground, one hand snag, brought it in, looked beautiful. But great spiral on the ball, fast off the hand. He looks like a veteran, like you were saying, and is acting like a veteran in OTAs. And that's what the Bears want. And I honestly think that a lot of it comes from a guy like Andy Dalton and the confidence in his head coach of Matt Nagy. Like, again, this is Matt Nagy's quarterback. Matt Nagy is going to build this guy the way he wants. Mitchell Trubisky was not Matt Nagy's choice. And obviously, guess what his choice was? Down in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. So he is a quarterback whisperer when it is his choice. Let's see how it works out. Don't lose your confidence in Matt Nagy yet. I know I lost it for a while, but it's coming back slowly but surely. But I want to get into Andy Dalton really fast. He doesn't look like he is scared of losing his gig like Mike Glennon and kind of like Nick Foles. Like, he understands that Fields is the future. He knows he's on a 1-year contract in Chicago, and he is now in the point in his career that he is a mentor. He has almost 40,000 passing yards. He is likely in, a couple decades to go into the Hall of Fame. And I know people are going to go, Andy Dalton in the Hall of Fame. The stats was what are going to get him in. Like you hear about some of these guys every year that go into the Hall of Fame. You're like, who? And then older generations are like, who? Andy Dalton knows that like his career being the guy is probably over, but he's going to make $10 million, being a mentor. And Nick Foles is just fine with it too. We'll go into the depth chart in a little bit in regards to quarterback, but Andy Dalton looks good too. Good release off the ball. He's communicating well with teammates. Allen Robinson hasn't been at OTAs for personal reasons. Same with Nick Foles. But Andy Dalton is smiling with Fields, giving him suggestions. There's a lot of, good vibes there. And you see it. It's not like if you were there, I bet you can't understand unless you're there. But from an outsider perspective, watching the 1920 clips, again, I highly suggest going to watch those. Like London was saying, they're really awesome. It gives you a perspective of what's going on, considering fans aren't allowed at Hallis Hall for OTAs like they used to be when they were in Bourbonnais. But man, they just look good. There's a relationship there. And I'm pretty pumped about it. I know you are too, London, but I'm pumped about it.
Yeah. And everybody, honestly, all Bears fans should be very excited about it. And again, I don't see that like tension, like they always talk about like the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers tension where Brett Favre used to call him out in the cafeteria and call him kid all the time. And I know Tom Brady sometimes like was good with some of his backups, wasn't so good. Just so on and so forth. There's been many quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger, for example, I guess is horrible with like his backup quarterbacks. But like, that's just not what I see from Andy Dalton. You know what I mean? No. You see more of that like, hey, I put up the numbers. I've been in the league. Let me help you. I understand you're the future. And honestly, that kind of makes me, and I know I was a little bit out on Andy Dalton, but I understand him as a leader. That makes me respect him so much more. And honestly, all Bears fans out there, you should also respect Andy Dalton so much more that he's taking that role. And that when Matt Nagy said, hey, this is a great quarterback room for a rookie, he wasn't just feeding us BS. Like he actually was like, hey, Andy Dalton, as our starting quarterback, giving Justin Fields time to develop, and also, just going into the grind of the NFL is going to be a great person that Justin Fields has on his side. He wasn't feeding us BS. A lot of people were like, oh, how could a great quarterback room be Andy Dalton and Nick Foles? Andy Dalton right here is proving to you that he's worth, honestly, that $10 million. Because if he helps Justin Fields, go through OTAs, go through training camp, gives him time to develop and Justin Fields turns out to be a phenom in the NFL, that $10 million is worth every penny, every single penny.
I think honestly, the $10 million was also worth you trying to do your Packers impression right there. Yeah. That was great. That's kind of what I was hitting on earlier is that Mike Glennon did not give that relationship to a young Mitch Trubisky. Jay Cutler never had the opportunity to do something like that. And then Chase Daniel, who is not a proven starting quarterback in the NFL, was the best mentor Trubisky had. He was being mentored from a backup perspective. If you're being mentored from a Pro Bowl caliber, a very good quarterback overall, not saying, I know he's had a couple rough years. I know in the playoffs he's been a little bit rough, and that's what the Bears fans just love to go to the negativity of every single player that's brought in that isn't a Khalil Mack, that isn't an Allen Robinson. They're like, okay, what did this guy do wrong? Look at what this guy has done right. He is doing exactly like you said and what I've said, doing what he was brought in to do. Mentor, 1 year mentor, likely. And hey, if it works out and he understands his role, Fields takes over as starter, and then he's like, hey, I want to stay in Chicago and stay working with this kid. Nick Foles will be off the pay chart the pay scale next year. Andy Dalton could sign like a $3 million deal with incentives again and just be like, hey, I'm retiring soon. I kind of want to sit on my ass with a great school system in Chicago and make $4 million in a year. I think you would do it. Would you not, London? Like,
100%, especially if Justin Fields, develops into that quarterback. Yes, Matt Nagy is going to get a lot of praise, but Andy Dalton, I mean, he is going to be that person. You know what I mean? He's going to be that person sitting in the room, sitting in the film room longer with Justin Fields. And if he is that guy, then absolutely, next year, if Justin Fields takes off like we all hope he will, bring him back, let him be the backup. And hopefully they build that relationship, because that's exactly what, after Patrick Mahomes took over, Alex Smith stayed around for another year. Until then, he was shipped off to Washington after his contract was up. Of course, he had that fatal injury and is now retired. But that's exactly what happened. And honestly, it worked. And Patrick Mahomes still to this day talks about the leadership and the knowledge that Alex Smith gave him, not only when he was sitting, but once he was the starter, was something that he'll always, like when Alex Smith retired, he said, I'll always be in his debt.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that Alex Smith and Andy Dalton were very similar quarterbacks. They were good enough to do well in the regular season, and they got to the playoffs and they didn't do as well. But their overall stats show they were pretty good. They're better than any Bears quarterback we've ever seen in the last couple generations. I mean, the last good quarterback technically was Sid Luckman.
Yeah.
Sid Luckman. Our parents weren't even around for Sid Luckman. Like, come on. Jim McMahon, I guess, but the fatal injury that the Packers did on him, that's a whole nother ball game. We'll jump into that another day. But moving on to the next topic is injury update. There has only been one major injury that is broken out of camp, and that's Daz Newsome with a broken collarbone. He's out 8 weeks, but will be back in time for official training camp. Again, these are OTAs. These are totally voluntary. You don't need to come to these things. Also, Allen Robinson and Nick Foles did not attend due to personal matters, but it's not like they have, bad blood with the team. Nick Foles has still talked to the media. He's just like, I got some other stuff I got to deal with right now in my personal life. And same with Allen Robinson. And Allen Robinson is a $20 million man. The Bears probably called him and were like, hey, we'll say it's personal matters, but we don't want you getting hurt. Let's just evaluate a couple other guys because you're the only really locked in person. But, Darnell Mooney's there. Anthony Miller's there. All the rookies are there. Most of the offense is there. And, I think that it's fine. Like, none of the defense showed up. We'll get to that in a second. But before we get to that, actually, let's get into it really fast. Defense, none of the veterans showed up besides Roquan Smith. Totally fine with me. And Matt Nagy is praising him because I know that they had bad blood for a minute too. But Roquan is a guy that doesn't come into the league. Quote, Roquan Smith is a guy that doesn't come into the league often. He's different. He's rare. That's why we love having him. That's what you want to hear from the head coach as a leader, not just talking about the offense and competitions, focusing on guys that are going to make an impact on your team. But London, who would you like to see come to training camp and kind of work with the rookies, the defensive rookies that are there, besides just one major guy?
Yeah, hit on a few things there. I mean, the Daz Newsome injury, I heard it was like a non-contact injury and he kind of felt weird or something like that. So hopefully he's healed. He's all good to go. They were seeing some good things out of him and stuff like that. So that's great. Get healthy, get ready for training camp. I'm sure that will not even be a hiccup in his life because he was a pretty healthy guy. Allen Robinson, Nick Foles not being there, totally fine with. I'm fine with like Eddie Jackson. Of course, Khalil Mack's not going to show up, and Akeem Hicks and those guys, like, they don't need to be there. They're proven veterans. They know who they are. Honestly, one person that I was kind of sad that hasn't shown up to OTAs that I wish would have, but probably won't, is Jaylen Johnson. But I know he's still recovering. So I'm hoping that he's just hitting the gym really hard, getting his body ready. But Roquan Smith being the only starting defensive player to come to a voluntary OTA with the rookies and stuff proves right now on Just Another Year Chicago, and to all the Bear fans out here, this is now officially his defense. He is now the Brian Urlacher. He is now the Mike Singletary. I mean, it is literally his defense. Yes, you still have Khalil Mack. Yes, you still have, Akeem Hicks, who's very vocal. You still have Eddie Jackson out there and stuff like that. You have a lot of veteran players and stuff and just all around the board, from the secondary to linebackers to the defensive line. The Bears have always been linebacker centric. Roquan, I know, had a little bit, like you hit on, a little bit of drama last year, and he's kind of been, he's hanging out with porn stars and all this other kinds of stuff like that. Doesn't matter. He is the only defensive starter to show up to OTAs and work with these rookies, see what they're about, run them through drills, all that kind of different stuff. This is his defense.
Yes.
Chicago, the monsters of the Midway, it is Roquan Smith now. And honestly, I when I saw that he was the only defensive starter there, I read it on Twitter. I was so excited. I've been a huge Roquan Smith fan since back when he was at Georgia. I think he was very dominant. It's his defense. Like, he is now the man going forward. And honestly, we're in great hands.
Yeah, and just a quick side comment. Apparently last week I accidentally said Riley Reed instead of Riley Ridley, and I got cooked in the comment section for saying, is this guy talking, like, what was this guy doing before the podcast? So apologies about that. Roquan Smith actually was probably hanging out with her. So that's why I said it, just to clear things up. But yes, it is his defense. It is, this is Chicago. This is what Chicago needed, was that leader. And we kind of hit on that. I know I brought it up last 2 podcasts ago about the Bears, but you've talked about it in the past too. The Bears needed that voice on defense. Akeem Hicks just pumped guys up, but Roquan's going to be out there telling guys what to do, directing guys at what a linebacker should be doing. And that's what I think that defense was missing. I am very excited for it. I know you are too. But quickly going back, kind of, backtracking again, the Bears have signed all their rookies except Justin Fields. Now, I want everyone to calm down really fast. He's looking good in camp. They're evaluating him, but they're also trying to bring in Morgan Moses. Morgan Moses stayed for a second interview on Thursday, flew back to his personal home. I'm not sure where it is, but the Bears are trying to figure out the cap situation right now. Okay, can we get Jimmy Graham to do a signing bonus? Why he wouldn't do it, I don't know, but it could be in a clause in his contract. But because Justin Fields is going to get paid the most, he's the first round guy. Like that's just what it is. They have signed everyone else but him. And if we signed Morgan Moses for an $8 million deal, that leaves the Bears with $2 million to give Fields. They're probably going to want to give him a little bit more than that. I mean, you've seen some of these rookies getting 4-year, $16 million deals. So that's like $4 million a year. So they want to make Fields feel comfortable and be like, hey, we're paying you now. Play your heart out because we'll give you the big bucks later. So everyone just needs to calm down that Justin Fields isn't signed. It's okay. It's not another Roquan Smith situation where he didn't even show up.
And Nick, this is what happens with rookie quarterbacks.
It happens.
Honestly, that he's not holding out and he's at the voluntary OTAs and stuff like that means he's not going anywhere. I'm not worried about this. They're just contractually trying to figure everything out. Because honestly, we talked about it a couple days ago when we had an OTA. You have to get the most out of your rookies, especially at the quarterback position, on their rookie contracts. Because if he balls out, and guess what? I mean, there's $400 million. I think Patrick Mahomes just set that. So if Justin Fields balls out as an absolute just transcendent player in Chicago, it's going to be 400, 500, 600 million. It's just how it works. I'm not even worried. But if he wasn't showing up to anything and wasn't doing anything, I'd be a little more concerned. He's not. We're fine. Everybody move on.
He knows how important he is to this city. So, kind of going to our next topic, who's looking good? Justin Fields. That one's an easy one off the board. Yeah. But again, Andy Dalton is someone that should be talked about more. He looks really good as a veteran quarterback. His body language, he looks happy to be here. In Dallas, he didn't look happy to be there, but he knows his role. He knew he went from a starter to a backup to Dak Prescott. That's kind of an ego blow. He's had that ego blow now, and now he's like, I'm a mentor now. This is an honor to be leading the guy who could be the next Dak Prescott, the next Patrick Mahomes. So, his play is well, but his mentorship is even better. So shout out Andy Dalton for that. In the official Bears Week 1 depth chart, because it was promised to Andy Dalton, it goes Dalton QB1, Fields QB2, Foles QB3. And Foles came out and said, hey, that's where they want me. That's where they want me. If you're making $9 million a year to be a third string quarterback, I would have the exact same reaction. So, and then finally for my who's looking good is Cole Kmet. I mean, he is looking like a baller. Yeah, claps off to him. Chicago kid, not too far from where I'm filming right now. Breakout season alert. Hell yeah. Bears Twitter thinks so. I shot something out there yesterday and almost all the replies were Cole Kmet breakout season. This kid looks good. He's been working with Jimmy Graham. He went to tight end university. I'm pumped. But London, who do you have? Who's looking good and who's your breakout season guy?
Yeah, one thing I want to allude to on who's looking good is Justin Fields, okay? And I know you said it's easy. It's something that, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
What I want Bears fans to do out there on Bears Twitter and stuff like that is, again, go watch the 1920 Football Doctor, but listen to what Doug Filippo is saying on the field and what he's talking about in interviews about Justin Fields for his first time in practice. This is not what, and I know I'm just going to bash on the Packers again because F the Packers. This is not what Jordan Love, and they've been saying about Jordan Love. Jordan Love started 30-something games in college. I mean, he's had a whole season behind an MVP quarterback, and he's still struggling. His first day at camp, he got sacked, threw 2 picks, and threw 6 checkdowns to running backs. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers has the upper hand in this battle. But one thing I just want to read and listen again to what Filippo is saying, because it's kind of the same wording, opposite of what they're saying about Jordan Love and what they're kind of saying from last year's quarterbacks. I pulled up these quotes. So on Joe Burrow, it says, he had his first scrimmage the other day, and he was nearly flawless in his execution. It sounds like the arm strength is even better than anticipated. Big things for Joe Burrow. Will be a day one starter. Joe Burrow was great until he got injured, and that's the kind of same thing. The next one is the first OTA for Justin Herbert. You know, we talk about it when you draft him. His athletic ability is rare for his size, but to see it in person, the type of throws he's been able to make in practice has been very impressive. He does a heck of a job staying in the pocket and doesn't flinch under pressure. Those same kinds of things of what the quarterback coaches for those prospective teams, even last year, when honestly, a lot of people were out on Justin Fields. I was, and a lot of people were like, oh, is Joe Burrow, is he going to translate, or was it just those LSU wide receivers, JJ the Jet and Chase, am I drawing a blank on his name? He just got Jamar Chase, who just got drafted to that team. I mean, those same kind of things Doug LaFlippo was saying, hey, great positioning with your shoulders, great velocity on your throws, great job commanding the line of scrimmage. Like the same kind of stuff for these very, very talented and probably the future of the NFL QBs. We're hearing that same stuff off script, not at a press conference, off script, quarterback coaches saying about Justin Fields. That should get everybody excited. That should get everybody very, very excited. So Justin Fields, easy. I agree with you with the Andy Dalton. Honestly, I like the depth chart like we talked about.
Yeah, it's good.
It is. And when it comes to a breakout player, I like everybody has the Cole Kmet. And I agree. I'm a big Cole Kmet fan. He's from like the Arlington Heights area, and he's, and he, is from tight end U at the Notre Dame. And I am ready for him. He's been trading with Jimmy Graham. The one person, honestly, that I want to see have a big breakout year, and it's someone who's a great, great player, but he's kind of slumped since he got paid, is Eddie Jackson.
Yes.
Not enough people are talking about him. I totally understand. Last year, three of his interceptions for touchdowns got called back on penalties.
Got called back.
And he's still, since he's been in the NFL, he still leads the league in turnovers for touchdowns, and 3 of them got called back. He had a little bit of a down year. He's still an elite safety. I really, really hope now that since Kyle Fuller is gone, he kind of replaces that Kyle Fuller mentality of that secondary, especially because Jaylen Johnson is going to need him, because there's, of course, going to be those kind of baby steps that are still going to need to happen because of the injury. But, I mean, you can't go wrong. Either Cole Kmet, Eddie Jackson. I'm excited. I'm excited, Nick. If you can't tell, I'm excited.
So, you're kind of saying like a comeback player of the year, not a breakout season, but a comeback player of the year. Eddie Jackson's a proven guy. There's no doubt about it. Teams still playing around him. And again, we've talked about before, I think Chuck Pagano really hurt his playing ability because that's not the style that he came into the NFL playing under Vic Fangio. But now that Vic Fangio type defense is coming back, I think you're right. Eddie Jackson is definitely, Serial's coming out. Number 4 is back. Like Eddie Jackson's got the swagger still. Bojack, I think he is going to have a good season. And I think it's great. So we have the breakout guy in Cole Kmet and the comeback player of the year. I couldn't agree more with that. But I would like to see him maybe at OTAs next week, maybe for a day, just to kind of, get the blood flowing, talk to some of the younger guys, get to know him. But we'll see. I feel very good about the Bears. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, you guys are nuts for saying 12-5, 11-6. Let's just see how it turns out. Let's just see how the first couple games go. And also I saw this today. Someone's going to be like, what's going to happen to Bears fans when Andy Dalton throws like 4 touchdowns and a couple hundred yards in the opening game. Everyone's going to go, oh my God, it's so great. And then we're both going to go, what the hell?
Yeah, Nick, that was the thing. I retweeted that guy and I go, it's something about like, would Bears fans be confused when Andy Dalton was like, confused. I go, confused? I go, I'll be ecstatic. That's exactly what I've been preaching and I want to happen. Just like Jay Cutler said, I want Andy Dalton to go out there. I hope he, is the game manager and the baller that he can be, and that he wasn't the pass for the Cincinnati Bengals, because that just gives Justin Fields more time to watch NFL games, evaluate defenses, sit on those, they're not iPads, they're Microsoft Surfaces or whatever.
Oh, the tablets.
They're tablets or whatever. And like, give him more time. And that was the most ridiculous tweet I saw when he was like, are they going to be confused? I'm like, no, because that probably means we won by a good amount. We probably killed the Rams.
And that literally also means that Ryan Pace is no dumb cookie. Like he could have gotten Fitz Magic, which I would have been fine with too. He could have gotten Fitz Magic. He could have gone out and got Hawkins. He could have gotten anyone else, but he chose Andy Dalton, gave him his money. And if the Bears go 5-0, 4-1 in the first 5 games, I'm gonna go back to that tweet and be like, not confused, but just another year told you right that was gonna happen. That was gonna happen.
Yeah, and we win. And like, if he throws for 400 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns or whatever against the Rams defense with our defense, we win that game by 14 points. Easy.
Suck that, Jalen Ramsey. Your daddy caught, and his dad's going to catch 2 of those touchdowns. Yeah. I want Darnell Mooney to have like his towel, and he like holds it up to the camera and it says, who's your daddy? And like points at Jalen Ramsey. I'm going to tweet Darnell Mooney that, and I hope he does that. If he does even 1 touchdown, just like, who's your daddy? And then he was also jawing at Allen Robinson. And there's that Jaguars practice clip that Jalen Ramsey gets his ankles absolutely, incinerated by Robinson. And people are going to go, oh, of course, Bears fans talking about Jalen Ramsey again. Oh, shut up. If that happened to your team, you guys would be blowing up even more than us. So let's just keep that clear, okay? Mm-hmm. But I got to ask, because Aaron Rodgers has not shown up to training camp, OTAs, right? Still hasn't. He's still in Hawaii, I believe. Do you know, because you're up north, so I don't know if he's still in Hawaii. I do know that none of the starting receivers showed up either, and that's kind of interesting. That not even like a little salt in the womb. Green Bay's not doing well. Jordan Love's like chucking it to who's that Clemson guy they drafted? Amir Rodgers or something, who's like a running back receiver. Oof. Honestly, go watch if anybody's out there and they want to know about the Aaron Rodgers, thing happening, other than the local media, I can give you some, inclination about what's going on. Go listen to what Colin Cowherd said about Aaron Rodgers. I think it was like a day or 2 ago about Aaron Rodgers now having the most power because the Packers came out and said that Jordan Love had a really bad first couple days of OTAs and like couldn't throw it down the field against like a defense he's been playing against for a year. Like it was, and going easy on him.
Like that is, I'm gonna pick if Jordan Love is their starting quarterback, Aaron Jones might be my first running back taken off the board for fantasy football because man, the checkdowns are gonna be sweet. They're gonna be sweet.
So final comments before we log off. Mm-hmm. How scale of 1 to 10? How stinky is the cheese up in Wisconsin right now?
Oh man. Now that the weather's getting nicer, it's like 92 degrees right now where I live and kind of up in the Green Bay area. Honestly, with the weather being super hot, the beer being super cold, and them just kind of being super upset about Aaron Rodgers, it's like, honestly, in the next 3 days, it's going to hit like a 9 on how stinky it is because they are just, if you listen to local media, they are just like, they don't know what to do. They're like, is Blake Bortles going to be our starter? Like they're freaking out. They're literally freaking out. And I sit there and I'm just like, God, Aaron Rodgers, like I kind of like you, even though you get to the Bears.
So, as we're logging off, we'll make sure that we get a Cheryl Moore update about how she's feeling, considering that she's the door behind London. And we're going to do Cheryl updates moving forward and see how this plays out from a Packers fan. But with that, thank you very much for joining this Friday's episode of Just Another Year Chicago. We will be back next Monday, depending. Next Monday or Tuesday, depending, with updates from OTAs. Hopefully some more defensive players come. More good news from Justin Fields and the Bears as a whole. But thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside my co-host London Beth, and we will see you guys next time.